The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq one, just what we're discussing here on the day. And again, today was a pretty wild one. So we saw Nasdaq continue on its trend, breaking all-time highs and pushing further into that range of highs. We also saw ES get some continuation, not as good as the Nasdaq, but still, nevertheless, operating pretty good. Get the mount of your previous level established right here, our previous all-time high from June 20th, mounting that level last Friday, still pushing up, not really getting a continuation just yet. We had a pre-market good push, but nothing really during the market day. What I will say is so far, you're getting decent candles here, signaling that sellers try to step in and buyers are holding you up. This is always a good sign of what you want to see. You can also highlight this level right here and really see that buyers are holding you above that previous high established Friday around, that local high Friday around 1 p.m. Central, okay? 2 hours before market close, we were holding that level. That's a really good note. So ideally what you want to see is consolidation above this level and ultimately pushing us back up. That's what you want to see overall there. Now we go into Dow, and again, Dow's been kind of the one that's given us the most issues, right? So this morning we saw Dow pop off and then fall right back down, kind of pinched here. But again, something that I don't see a lot of people talking about is what Dow is doing on higher time frames, clearly pinching here, making a pennant on higher time frames. This is the daily chart going back to basically highs March 19th, March 28th, and then obviously pinching here. Still very interesting, looks decent. And as we have more catalysts coming up as we get to the apex here, definitely has a lot of curiosity for myself, and I could see the potential of this getting the breakout. A big thing that's really important, and I love to just demonstrate how when you get involved in all areas of the market, how it really benefits the entire stock market, not just Dow names, but also semiconductors and tech, etc. Right? So if you go back to last year, right, we kind of just operated and we just never really could break out of this high range, basically from 2022 all the way into basically, December of this past year, 2023, and then we break out in January, right? December going into January, and you just go kind of crazy from basically December 11th all the way into April 4th, right? And so if we look at something like, for instance, SPY, right? And let's just look from SPY from December, that's when SPY got kind of crazy. Like, you had some good breakouts here, don't get me wrong, but SPY ended up running parabolic, if you will, for, the next 2-3 months, almost straight up in a line with no real pullbacks. And this is what really gets involved here, right? Now, granted, you had some good runs here, even with the Dow not moving great, but let's just, let's be real. If we look at the moves on SPY over the past, year and a half, the biggest trending move you've had was obviously when the Dow got the most involved, right? Can we all just attest to that? That was your biggest move so far. So things to consider and to be looking at and paying very close attention to, because again, once the Dow gets involved, that's when the fireworks can really pop off on the broad overall market. Okay. So those are a few things. Now, also too, I want to discuss what's happening here on the week also. So I've been really clear and I gave you a viewpoint yesterday as well. Going into what is happening here on the news. So again, go to your calendar, guys. You can use multiple different websites. I use Moomoo for a lot of my stuff. If I'm going quickly, I might go to investing on my phone. But again, what I really want to check off is going into Friday, because again, Thursday and Friday are your big days here. You have a lot of Fed members talking throughout the week. But the biggest thing that you're going to get, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to be CPI, core CPI, and overall CPI, our headline CPI, coming out on Thursday, which CPI month over month has been moving in the right direction. CPI year over year dropping as well, what you want to see. Your inflation data moving in that right direction. And then we have PPI inflation coming out on Friday, the day after. So both are very, very important. Both are moving in the right direction so far. This is what we want to see. More of the same on what's been happening here. Okay. Very big, what we need to be paying close attention to. Now, I also want to dive a little bit into the volume, what you can expect, because I said going from Monday into Wednesday, you could see some good movement. I really think tomorrow and today and tomorrow are your best days, Tuesday and Monday. I think those are the days you should be watching for the most, because you're not going to be impacted too much by the anticipation of inflation data. But what I will say is when we look at some of the trends here, we look at volume. This is just for CPI. I think CPI is the big one that we need to watch for primarily. This is Edgeful as well. So this is just a data tracking website. You can check them out. But this blue line the dark blue represents when CPI, the CPI day, and then your volume surge. And so this goes back for the past year. And we can see on CPI week, CPI day typically is your highest volume day. Okay, we usually have some lower volume before CPI, T-2, T-1, and then the day after we get some continuation in the direction as well. December we had better continuation, higher volume. So there are cases where that volume actually is either better or kind of like a little bit under what CPI day is. So that's usually the two best days is CPI and the day after, which is most of the time PPI as well. So things to consider is like, although volume, when we look at SPY and the Nasdaq, you really are, it's very clear that volume has been kind of lackluster. We can all agree on that, right? You don't need crazy volume to get continuation, but getting a breakout, getting a reversal, breaking out of a structure, typically want higher volume. So if you're looking for a bearish move, then it's probably gonna come around, guess when? An inflation reading day, just to give you a heads up. Now, again, I will say right now, until CPI, CPI, PPI, any of this, right, comes out bad, meaning inflation is on this resurgence, bouncing back. And I'm not talking about Call of Duty, right? You're back on the bounce, right? Coming back up. I don't think you have any reason to assume downside, or downside on the overall market. The other point of this is what I was talking about with unemployment data, So you have unemployment and you have CPI coming out, both beneficial to the market. As long as these are coming out in tangent together, you're expecting more continuation towards the upside. That's my personal opinion. Do what you got to do, but that's what I'm overall anticipating broad markets. So wanted to make sure that we attack that. That's very, very clear. Now, again, let's go really quickly into the dollar and what's happening here as well. I'm going to do the 4-hour chart here. We'll zoom in. We'll get rid of the volume indicator, bring that down. So if we're looking at the DXY, we're still making lower highs since essentially April, which is a good note to have. You are making lower highs and you have been making lower lows. You want to see a break below 104.17, continuation of the downside for a risk on environment. Even though we're pretty much in a risk on environment with how the market's been moving. But if you go into smaller caps, you're not getting that environment, in my opinion. It's a lot larger names and larger caps in the tech space and semiconductor space that are getting all the love, right? So again, 30-year yields continuing to drop like we kind of expected. This is what you wanted to see. And again, why are yields dropping right now? Because unemployment data and inflation data have been moving in the right direction, signaling that there's a high likelihood of a Fed cut coming, This isn't opinion based. This is what the Fed has said to us continually. Powell has said what has to happen in order for rates to get cut, in order for yields to most likely drop and rates get cut, right? You got to have unemployment start to rise. You are rising. Their target for this year was 4.3%. You're at 4.1. Number two, you need to see inflation data move in the right direction. We went over CPI. It's moving in the right direction. We want to see yields ultimately get back below 4%. That's the goal there. That's a very bullish market if we can get that type of action. Those are the important things right now. I also do want to go over this. I'm not a huge person on your fear and greed index. I'm not a fanboy of this. But what I will say is that you've been operating. I've been posting this. If you don't follow on Twitter, I recommend doing so. I post all my charts. I couldn't post too much today, guys. We had the hurricane stuff here in Houston, so I just didn't have service or didn't have power. I was mainly operating off my phone. But again, I'm gonna keep you guys posted on this. But I post this a lot on Twitter because it gives you a good signal for can you expect more continuation? And when you look at the market right now, you're still in an area of neutral. You're not even in greed or extreme. You're not even close to extreme greed. That's absurd to me, right? But it's important that we understand what's moving in the market right now. And we go back and look, and you can see that there's areas of this market that are red on the day. It was kind of a back and forth day, but it's worth mentioning that you're getting this rotation where you get semiconductors moving up, and then tech will pull back, and then have healthcare and Dow names move up, and then semis will stay back. And this is typically how the market tries to move in an overall healthy environment. Everything doesn't just go up all at once all the time. And so that's where you're at right now. And if you go into Friday and you go into Thursday and get that data that you're looking for, you're probably going to expect to see all these very, very green. And on top of that, earnings season starts at the end of this week. So very important. Today, though, I will say, although it was green on the Nasdaq, I think it was a pretty neutral day overall. Semiconductors did most of your heavy lifting, but yeah. So that's the big viewpoint there right now. I want to make that really clear. Also, too, guys, if you guys are interested, this is a Moomoo. I use them for all my trading, all my stocks, all my options. They have a bunch of different deposit bonuses, things like that. I'm not going to go into that, but you can check them out. The link is down below. It's who I use for all my trading. Anything to do with stocks, like I said, they have everything when it goes to your portfolio to show you how to day trade. Again, no risk, things like that. To education, news, your calendar. It's everything basically all in one. So make sure you check them out. The link is down there below. Okay, now, really quick, guys, we're going to start going into some of these equities. I've been doing a little bit of longer videos. I think you guys have been fans so far, and I kind of like the ramble here, right? You guys have been liking it so far. So really quick, we're going to start jumping into some of these names, and I'm going to go over my favorite names in the market right now. Obviously, Nasdaq is showing a lot of continuation. I do think, though, as we move closer into Wednesday, reason for caution going into CPI. Okay, I've been saying this as oil has heated up. I've just said, I think, being safe is smart. And when you go into the CPI days, we'll see. But yeah, that will be interesting. But ahead of this, though, there's a few names that look really good. And I've gone over Nasdaq and SPY. Let me really quickly, before I go into these names, show you what I'm looking for on SPY and Nasdaq, so you can really quickly know as you're attacking this day. And I'll have this post on Twitter later too. Okay, so if we start breaking back below, just to let you know, back below this level down here, basically 554 to 554.4 to 554 flat. You're going to be very illiquid, just to let you know. You're going to be illiquid. So this whole area under 554 on Qs to 550 is illiquid, meaning if we start to make a lower low here, you could start dropping quick, okay? Some volatile movement. So that's why I say caution. But as long as you're making higher lows and higher highs, you look good. So as long as we're holding this level 554 and bouncing back up and buyers are stepping in, you look fine. No reason for caution, okay? This is the S&P, sorry, SPY. If we go into Qs, again, it's gonna be the exact same chart. I already knew, sorry. So 554 in SPY, Qs, you actually have a better level right here. You can actually see right there. So 496 to 495, almost $1 range, which is something that we really like to see. But again, you can see there's no liquidity once you start getting below these levels. Okay, under 495, there's nothing. You could drop quick. You have a little bit at 490, but that's almost $8 of downside. So again, lots of caution. But again, if you're making higher lows, you're holding up, you're getting into 500, that big psych level, these are things that you want to see. Okay. Now, best names overall. What are we looking for? Now, I'm focused on which names have the breakout potential. You guys know I love the big breakouts. And I'm going to start with my favorite one so far. Me and Jordan were talking about this one earlier today. It's AMD. And AMD gets interesting, very interesting. So there's a few levels you're trying to watch because you have a lot of wicks back here. But I think where things get interesting is above 180. You start mounting above 180, and AMD starts to really get crazy, okay? So there's a few levels we were watching, right? This level right here was your 2022 or 2021 all-time high, right? I'm going to make sure we understand that. This level right here, let me highlight right there. That was your 2021 all-time high. Okay, we're obviously above that level. You can see that we've mounted it. That's at 164.5 level, okay? Now, this is your next level, 180 locally. You have a few levels in here, but this is your big one, 180, okay? You start to mount this level of 180 and then 184, you get it pretty illiquid. You've broken the downtrend. You're slingshotting back up. Really quick, just bringing that back. I mean, you're really going to see, guys, there's not much. Even if we just bring it back to highs, you got no liquidity above here. I mean, you have a little bit of 183, 182, but there's not much at all. So you start mounting 180 here on AMD, this thing can move back into 200 with ease. I mean, conservatively 193, 194. So again, you start breaking 180 to 184, it's smooth selling here, right? And an area that we've been talking about is semiconductors that's kind of been held back over the past few days. And now it's really breaking back up, right? We got back above 271. We're sitting at 274. We're kind of flagging, trying to push back on all-time highs. Okay. Now you guys know I love NVIDIA. Don't get me wrong, but AMD is like the cheap little cousin, right? This has been pretty good name over the past year or so too. You just got to know when to trade it, when to get into it, and when the value is really there. You go to something like September 20th, you go for 200. Those are $9 right now. Okay. Pretty affordable. Right, and those could easily get in the money. You also have earnings price in this as well. So again, you could really you're not going to get destroyed on these because you have a few things protecting you. And these could really start getting, towards in the money, closer to $14, $15 a contract. And that's what you're looking for here because you really want to be able to ride these if the breakout does ensue. And I know you're like, Tyler, well, do you really think that this can keep going? Again, I'm telling you guys, NVIDIA is still cooking down here, right? You pushed into 130 today, you rejected. You break 130 here on NVIDIA and it's over. I think you mount 130, you're done, you're bullish, bada bing, bada boom, you're running, right? Bare minimum, you're coming back into this level right here, locally into like 133, but again, I'm very, very, very bullish, right? You also got a price order raise on NVIDIA today to 150 from UBS. So again, I love AMD here. It's getting interesting as you're mounting these levels. And semiconductors of all things have been like, in my opinion, the big opportunities here. Now, NVIDIA, I've been pretty adamant about what I like here. I've been liking like the October contracts personally. I talked about the 130s a week ago. They're obviously worth a lot more now. I still think, you can make a lot of money on these contracts with the 140s. But you can stay at the money and still make a lot of money. So, you get in at 130, they move up to 135, 134. You're making decent money. I like the further out personally. Do what you gotta do. That's what I'm watching though. But when you're trying to trade semis here, in my opinion, I'm trying to capture a big move here. I'm not really trying to trade from range to range, back and forth, the ping pong, right? That's not where you're going to make your money. You're going to make your money on the breakout opportunity there. So really important that we understand that and that we're paying close attention to that, because you got to understand, like, one's like the day trade, one's the big trade, right? And where do you make more money? Like, you got to understand that one as well. Also, guys, if you're interested in the indicators down here, I always forget to shout them out, but Lux Algo, the link is down below, code OD40 for 40% off. So anyways, what we're looking at there, okay? Next up after this, really quick, I just want to cover Amazon. I think it's going to break. It's just like the action here is literally like mind numbing. You're just flatlined at 200. You got the breakout today into 201, 201.3 and rejected. Really ugly, terrible action here. I can't believe what's actually happening. I think if you're going to Amazon, you have to go dated. But again, I still think it looks good. Higher lows clearly here established. Clearly holding higher lows. So, that's where we're at. There's nothing really else to say there. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully you're watching. If you have questions, comment, let me know. But that's really it. Like, I've gone over contracts a lot on Amazon, but you got to be willing to hold the position if you want to trade this one. Next up, CrowdStrike. This was one of my favorites over the weekend. Probably my two favorites of the weekend were Intel and CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike opened up today and pushed into 397 and came back down. You're still holding that higher low trend. You got a quick stop hunt here. Again, really interesting name. Hard battle for 400. When it mounts and goes, it's going to make a lot of money. CrowdStrike is still there. Again, you had great entry opportunities during the day if you wanted to. But the big thing with CrowdStrike, guys, is you have to be willing to hold. So I don't really know what to tell you guys. Do what you got to do. Today, those 400s, the ones I've been talking about, you hit $9. You came back down to $3.50. You were all over the place today. So again, CrowdStrike is a volatile name. You have to know that. If you want to play something less volatile, ZS is a great example. It's been a great performer over the past few weeks. I've been screaming this one as well. Pan W is also a great one. Came back into 332. So those are my favorite names when it comes to cloud and what I've been watching. So make sure you're paying attention to those as well. I mentioned Intel over the weekend. It was my favorite one here. And again, we talked about this at 32. If you're in Discord, I mentioned this one. I don't know how else to say it. So again, go back into Discord. We go back from, it was pretty wild that I mentioned this one, to be honest. So really not a major fan of Intel, but if we mount $32, the swing trade over the weekend on Intel is worth it. Gap fill near $34. After hours, you're at 34.5. Intel this morning, it's a story, right? You held 32 to end the week. You held 32 to end the week, and you popped up. So hope you guys made money. Intel, that's pretty much it for me. You can still get some continuation here on Intel, but you're maybe trading in the $38, $39, but I just don't love Intel as a company. Not a huge fan. What I will say is the volume has ramped up significantly on it. Some of the best volume you've had going back to April 26th, maybe April 10th. So again, Intel's getting interesting, but this is one of those names, make your money and get the hell out for me. No reason to overcomplicate it. Looking at Intel though, again, when I talk about opportunity out there, guys, it's big on what I'm talking about as far as when we look at the price of options, okay? Again, you're able to go for something like August 16th. Every single contract made over 100% here today, right? And I was only, just right there for you to see. Go to September, it's at least 60% on any of these names as well. Again, I try to go over these. They were cheap. They made sense. Again, they're the $34 strikes were end of the day at $260. Could have bought them at $150 right? I don't like the cheaper option, so you guys do what you got to do. But, you know, again, the opportunity was there, right? This is what we have to strike on here. So again, as we go into tomorrow and the rest of this week, big names I'm watching. Number one, AMD looks really interesting over 180. It has to kind of take the shine here, be one of the big ones that we're expecting continuation on. I still love semiconductors. I love NVIDIA. I think AMD might have more opportunity short term, but I still love NVIDIA. I'm going to let you know that right now. Big name there. I think Micron is still very cheap around 131, holding that previous high level there as well. You got to hold it, but as long as you hold it, you look great. AVGO is bouncing back up, so I don't want to talk too much about that one. But those have been the names right now, right, guys? Those have been the names. CrowdStrike. Tesla's moving really good as well. Tesla's probably going into 264. Most likely going into 264. This is one of the trades we called out in Discord as well, pushing into 260. But those are the big names I'm watching. I think Amazon's really great as well. It's just about timing that trade of when you're going to get the volume and the continuation. That's the only issue with Amazon. But when it does happen, you're going to make the money as well. So paying attention, finding the names you like, and really focusing on the names that are going to make you the money, guys. If you're bouncing around too much from name to name to name, you're probably gonna notice it with your trading as far as getting hit and losing money. I don't want anyone to lose money, but that's just the reality of it. Like, it's gonna hurt you. But again, what I'm watching and paying attention to, Bitcoin kind of pulling back here today. It's been pretty tragic. Bitcoin gets above 58.7K. It's a long above the 200 SMA. But until then, you can't touch it with the 10-foot pole, guys. You're kind of flagging. You look weak down here. Just not a fan so far. But overall, going into the after hours right now, Nasdaq's showing continuation, showing a lot of love here. That's really great overall. ES held really good on the day, held your key level, 56.26. That's really good overall. Dow's coming to the apex of this pennant, really strong as well. And you're actually getting a little bit of love here on IWM. So again, broad markets look good. We have some Fed speakers speaking this week, so make sure you keep your head on a swivel. But overall, this is what we like to see. This is what we want to see. And I think it's setting up for a very interesting end of the week going into PPI and CPI. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.